Welcome to the Highly Effective Man podcast, hosted by former Navy SEAL turned life and fitness coach. I'm your host, JP Bolwahnn. This podcast is your resource for unlocking the healthiest, most productive, and highly effective man within you. Let's go. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Highly Effective Man podcast. And this week, we're going to talk about building unbreakable habits and why reps, not motivation, create discipline that's going to last a long time. So if you're tired of, starting strong and then falling off, or if discipline feels hard or inconsistent, this episode is going to show you how small daily reps create automatic discipline, remove self-negotiation, and turn habits into identity so that consistency becomes who you are, not something that you're trying to do. So the big three things we're going to talk about is, number one, why habits fail when you rely on motivation instead of reps. Number two, how repetition hardens identity and removes decision-making and some of that decision fatigue. And then number three, why tracking and enforcement, not intensity, will build unbreakable habits. Now, most guys believe that discipline comes from just putting in the effort, right? They think, I've got to want it badly enough to stick to it. Or if I get motivated again, then I'll be consistent. Or I just need to push harder. I just need to get motivated. I need to grind harder, right? But here's what I want you to make the shift. Discipline doesn't come from just trying harder or grinding harder. Okay, it comes from repeating the same behaviors until they stop feeling optional. Now, once you understand that reps or consistency, not motivation, those are what build identity, and that's when habits stop breaking. Now, motivation is emotional, right? You say you're going to do it if you feel like doing it. Reps are mechanical, and high-performing men don't rely on just how they feel. They rely on what they repeat or what they're consistent at. And repetition removes some of that thinking, which is where most guys will lose that discipline. So you don't become disciplined by deciding to be disciplined. You become disciplined by acting like a disciplined man long enough so that your brain accepts it as an identity, right? Your identity, like, I could say I'm a disciplined man, but if I'm not showing it or doing the reps, it's not going to happen. So I really want you guys to understand that it's installed through reps. So let's talk about number one, right? How motivation is unreliable. Every man, knows this cycle, right? You start strong, you feel locked in, you tell yourself, this time is different. Then life, gets busy. Sleep gets short, stress piles up, and then suddenly the habits disappear. And it's not because you're lazy, but because the motivation left the building, right? So motivation is a feeling, and feelings, they fluctuate, right? Some days they're high, some days it's low, but reps don't care how you feel. A habit only becomes reliable when it no longer requires motivation to execute it. And so that's why discipline is going to feel hard at first, right? Because you're still relying on that emotion. So if a habit requires motivation to happen, it's already unstable. The goal of habits isn't necessarily intensity. It's just automatic execution, right? That's what a habit is. So stop asking yourself, how do I stay motivated? Start asking, how do I make this behavior repeatable even on the bad days? So number two, repetition removes decision making. Okay, think about brushing your teeth, right? You don't debate it. You don't weigh the pros and cons of brushing your teeth. You don't ask, do I feel like it today? You just do it, right? And that's not motivation. That's just the repetition that you've done growing up that's turned into your identity. You're a person that cares about their teeth and that brushes their teeth, right? That's the identity. So every habit is going to require energy at first, right? I've got little kids and, I tell them to brush their teeth. They're like, I don't want to brush my teeth, and it's like, come on, right? It's for but like a grown adult, they don't, if you tell them to brush their teeth, right? One, they're probably gonna be like, I'm a grown adult. I know to brush my teeth, right? But the point is that you don't have to think about it. And you don't, regardless of how tired you are, or whatever it is, you're just going to do it. But in the beginning, it might be tough, right? When you're a kid. But every rep lowers the motivation or the cost of doing that habit. So repetition removes thinking, it removes the negotiation that might happen, and it removes the emotional friction. So eventually, the habit just executes itself, right? And that's when discipline becomes automatic. So men don't burn out from doing too much, right? But they burn out from deciding to do too much. Reps eliminate decisions because decisions, they drain your energy, right? That's where you have that decision fatigue. So the goal isn't to do more. The goal is to think less about what you already decided matters. So number 3, it's about tracking, right? Tracking your reps so that it turns discipline into identity. And so here's what a lot of guys miss, right? They do the habit, but they don't see the rep, right? So the brain doesn't register progress and identity never locks in. So tracking isn't necessarily about pressure. It's about proof, right? Every checked box is a vote for the man that you're becoming, right? Not tracking means sometimes that progress feels invisible, right? Or that momentum feels like it's not there. And discipline feels optional again, right? One of the things that I'll do with people that are trying to lose weight is like, if they have this constant urge to snack or eat something sweet, okay, if that comes in and they let it go, right? They not necessarily resist it, but like they allow that emotion or that feeling to come in, but then it passes and they don't eat a snack or they don't eat a sweet, then what they can do is they can, drop a penny into a jar or a marble into a jar, right? And then over time, the more times they do that, they see proof that they can resist those urges, right? That's one way of tracking. Another way is just, writing in your book or whatever it is. But what's nice about that is that every time you do that, you're showing yourself proof that you can do the thing that you said you're going to do, right? And it's not just like out there where there is no proof or physical proof, right? You don't need to track everything, but you need to track what defines you or what you're moving towards. So a few key reps that are done daily, that's what's going to compound fast. What I really want you guys to understand is that when the reps are visible, your identity hardens. And when the identity hardens, discipline will stop breaking. And so this is exactly what we build inside the Highly Effective Man Inner Circle. We're not chasing motivation. We install systems, right? Daily reps, weekly standards, and brotherhood accountability. And for men who want personal structure and reinforcement, I've got my VIP coaching program, Rebuild the Man. And this is where habits stop being theory and they become who you are, right? And so just to recap, motivation fades, but reps remain. You don't need to try to be disciplined. You repeat discipline until it becomes an identity. And those reps are going to build the identity. And then your identity will run the system, right? So another way to think about it is, your calluses on your hands, right? If you think about lifting, the first time you grip the bar or barbell, a lot of times it can be a little bit painful, right? If you're just coming back or you haven't been lifting, right? You might have your hands might tear or your grip feels weak. But over time, those calluses, they start to form, right? The pain disappears, the grip strengthens, the bar starts to feel normal. Well, habits work the same way, right? At first, they're not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. But over time, it just starts to feel normal, right? And those reps build calluses. and calluses build capacity, right? So here's what I want you guys to do over the next 7 days. Pick the 3 non-negotiable habits, right? That's what we talked about last week. Track them daily, right? Whether it's in a book or a calendar, whatever it is. We're not talking about perfection, right? And we're not talking about renegotiating or anything like that. We're just talking about track the reps, okay? Then ask yourself, who am I becoming by repeating this? And if you want to do this alongside other guys who are executing this, then join me inside the Highly Effective Man Inner Circle. We're going to stack the reps, build the identity, and operate with mental authority. This is the Highly Effective Man podcast. Let's go. Thank you for listening to the Highly Effective Man podcast. If you enjoyed or learned something on this episode, do me a favor and share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. And one last thing, if you want to work with me as your coach to help you get fit, be more productive, and in general, just be the most effective version of yourself, head over to my site, higherlevelcoaching.co. Once again, that's higherlevelcoaching.co, and schedule a call with me there. Thank you again. Let's go.